Welcome to the Stoic tide. Imagine focus so deep that hours feel like minutes and nothing can pull you away. The same three techniques appear in every Eastern tradition from samurai to Shaolin. Practices I found repeated across 200 plus videos and unified into what I call Senshin-do. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to eliminate distractions and focus deeper than you ever thought possible. We'll cover 4 simple steps that create this transformation, and it all begins with fixing the one mistake everyone makes. Part 1. The Ancient Trap Shaku. There's a Buddhist teaching that says, what you grasp, you lose. The tighter you squeeze water, the faster it escapes your hands. This explains why focus feels so hard. We've been taught the wrong approach. Think about it. When you need to concentrate, what's your instinct? Push harder, force it, fight through the distraction. But Eastern masters discovered 2,000 years ago that attachment to focus actually kills focus. They called this shuchaku, destructive attachment. Here's what actually happens. When you force concentration through willpower, your prefrontal cortex burns glucose like a rocket engine. Brain scans prove it. Within minutes, that part of your brain is depleted. Your focus doesn't slowly fade. It crashes completely. A Zen master put it perfectly. The mind is like muddy water. Leave it alone and it clears itself. Stir it and it stays cloudy forever. The stirring is the problem, not the mud. The forcing is what creates the chaos. This is why monks can meditate for 12 hours straight. They're not superhumans with infinite willpower. They discovered something we missed, that the war against distraction is won by not fighting. Sounds backwards? That's because it is. Think about quicksand. Every survival guide says the same thing. Don't thrash. Spread out. Move slowly. Work with the physics. Fighting makes you sink faster. Focus follows the same law. The moment you fight for it, you create the very resistance that destroys it. The samurai understood this deeply before battle. They didn't pump themselves up or force focus. They practiced what they called no mind, a state where focus happens naturally because there's no attachment to it, no forcing, just presence. The modern approach, every productivity hack, every focus app, every timer, they're all based on force. And force creates resistance. It's simple physics. Push something and it pushes back. Your mind works the same way. But here's the good news. Ancient masters found 3 practices that bypass force completely. 3 ways to build focus that works with your mind instead of against it. The first practice seems too simple to work, but that's exactly why it does. First practice, the fixed point. The ancient yogis gave one instruction that changed everything. Fix your mind on one object like an arrow on its target. Not 10 things, not 5 things, one thing. They called this dana, the practice of holding one point. Here's why this works. Where forcing fails, your mind is like a monkey jumping between branches. You can't stop it from jumping. That's its nature. But you can give it one branch to return to one home base. This is your anchor. Miyamoto Musashi, who never lost a duel in 60 fights, would stare at the tip of his sword for hours, just the tip. Nothing else existed. He said this practice made his mind like the tip of the sword, able to cut through anything. In battle, this focus meant life or death. One scattered thought and you're dead. Buddhist monks use different anchors. Some count breaths, some repeat sacred words, some stare at candle flames. But the principle never changes. One point, total commitment. Like a mountain that doesn't move no matter how hard the wind blows. A samurai teacher explained it like this. In battle, the warrior who looks at everything sees nothing. The warrior who looks at one thing sees everything. Your attention is the same. Spread thin, it's useless. Concentrated on one point, it becomes a weapon. Here's what happens in your brain. When you hold one point of focus, your default mode network, the part that creates mental chatter, actually quiets down. Brain scans show activity shifting from scattered regions to one concentrated area. You're literally rewiring from chaos to clarity. The key isn't what you focus on. It's the practice of returning. Every time your mind drifts and you bring it back to your chosen point, you build mental muscle. Like a swordsman practicing the same cut 10,000 times until it's perfect. Pick your anchor based on your life. If you work with your hands, make one specific movement your focus point. If you write, choose one word to return to between thoughts. If you're in sales, pick one phrase that centers you before each call. The master's principle applied to your battlefield. But here's what the ancient texts warn about. One pointed focus alone becomes rigid, like a sword that's hard but brittle, strong until it shatters. Samurai discovered this in battle. Perfect focus would break the moment something unexpected happened. That's why they developed the second practice. Something that keeps focus strong but flexible. Second practice, the deep flow. There's a Zen saying, be like water, present everywhere, attached nowhere. This is the difference between amateur focus and master focus. One is rigid, the other flows. Think about the last time you performed perfectly without trying. Maybe playing a sport, maybe in conversation, maybe at work. Everything clicked. Time disappeared. You weren't forcing anything. You were flowing. That's what the masters called chanting, meditative absorption. You felt this before. Remember a time when you were so absorbed in something that you looked up and hours had passed? That wasn't you forcing focus. That was your mind naturally entering flow state. The masters just learned to access it on command. Look at any elite boxer. The stiff fighter gets knocked out. The one who flows like water, untouchable. Ali called it float like a butterfly. Bruce Lee said be water. They discovered what ancient warriors knew. Rigidity is death. Flow is power. Here's the paradox most people miss. There are two types of focus. Forced focus, what beginners use. It works for maybe an hour before burning out. Then there's earned focus, what masters develop. It comes after you've practiced forced focus enough times that your mind learns to flow naturally. A samurai master explained it like this. The young warrior grips his sword so tight his hand shakes. The master holds it like a bird. Firm enough it won't escape. Loose enough it stays alive. Same with your concentration. Death grip it and it dies. Hold it lightly and it serves you forever. Think about driving. Remember when you first learned white knuckles, rigid focus, exhausted after 20 minutes? Now you can drive for hours in perfect focus without effort. You're not attached to focusing. You're just present. That's the transition from force to flow. This applies to everything in your life. That presentation at work. Stop death gripping every word. That difficult conversation. Stop forcing every response. The tighter you hold, the worse you perform. The master's new performance comes from presence, not pressure. The difference between holding focus and being held by focus is everything. When you hold focus, you control it. When focus holds you, you're trapped. One is freedom, the other is prison. Most people are prisoners to their own concentration. Watch a master craftsman work, a sword maker at his forge. Hours pass like minutes. He's not forcing focus. He's merged with the task. This isn't the tight concentration of a student. It's the deep absorption of someone who's transcended effort. This is what athletes call the zone, what musicians call the pocket, what warriors called no mind. It's focus without the struggle of focusing, concentration without the effort of concentrating. You earn this by going through forced focus so many times that your mind finally says enough and shifts into flow. The transition happens like this. First, you force focus and fail again and again. Your mind fights. Then one day something shifts. You stop fighting and start flowing. Not because you gave up, but because you finally understood the river was never your enemy. But here's the trap. Even perfect flow can be shattered. A samurai in deepest concentration could still be caught off guard by a shout. A craftsman absorbed in work can be jarred by interruption. Your flow state at work gets destroyed by one notification. Modern life is designed to shatter flow. Open offices, constant messages, endless interruptions. You achieve deep focus, then bang, someone taps your shoulder. Email notification, phone buzz, your flow state dies instantly. So you have two pieces of the puzzle now. The fixed point gives you an anchor. The flow state lets you work without burning out. But they're both defenseless against the chaos of real life. That's why the masters develop one final element. Not to prevent interruption. That's impossible. But to turn interruption from your enemy into your training partner. The third practice, the guardian. There's an ancient warrior code. Guard the 1 in 10,000 things fall in line. This is show. The practice that turns interruption from disaster into training. Think of it like this. You don't need perfect conditions to focus. You need a mental bodyguard that never sleeps. Something that brings you back the instant you drift. Not in 5 minutes when you realize you've been scrolling. Instantly. The samurai developed this out of necessity. In battle, one moment of lost focus meant death. They couldn't afford to drift for even a second. So they built what they called zanshin, remaining mind. The part of awareness that stays vigilant even in deepest concentration. Here's how it works. 3 steps that become one reflex. First, notice the moment you realize you've drifted. Most people take minutes or hours to notice. Masters notice in seconds. This isn't failure. It's the system working. Second, release. No drama, no self-attack. No, I'm so bad at focusing. Just release, like dropping a hot coal. The Zen master said, when you notice your thinking, that's enlightenment. The noticing is the practice. Third, return back to your anchor point from practice number 1, back to your flow state from practice number 2. But here's the key. You return without emotion, no frustration, no judgment, just mechanical return. Like a compass needle swinging back to north. Joshkin wrote about this in The Art of Learning. As a chess prodigy, he couldn't practice because his sister played music in the next room. Drove him crazy. He'd storm out, demand quiet, beg his parents for perfect conditions. Sound familiar? Then his coach told him the truth. If you can only focus in silence, you'll lose every tournament. Chess tournaments are chaos. Coughing, shuffling, ticking clocks. So Waitskin started practicing with the music. First he hated it, lost every game. But slowly something changed. The interruptions became his training partners. Each time the music pulled his attention, he practiced the return. Notice, release, return thousands of times until one day he realized. The music was still playing, but he hadn't heard it in an hour. This is what the masters knew. Perfect conditions make weak focus. Chaos makes unbreakable focus. A samurai who only trained in quiet dojus died in noisy battles. One who trained in chaos survived anything. This is different from modern productivity advice that says, eliminate all distractions. That's fantasy. Your coworker will interrupt. Your phone will buzz. Your mind will wander. The masters knew. You don't eliminate interruption. You master the return. Think about your daily reality. You're deep in work when someone calls your name. Most people need 5 minutes to get back to focus. With Shoyi, it's 5 seconds. Notice the interruption. Handle it if needed. Return to depth. No emotional charge. No wasted energy. The ancient texts describe this like waves hitting a cliff. The cliff doesn't fight the waves, doesn't get angry at them, just stands solid while they crash and recede. Your focus becomes that cliff. Interruptions hit and fall away while you remain. Here's what makes this powerful. It becomes automatic. At first you consciously practice notice, release, return hundreds of times daily. Then something shifts. Your mind starts doing it without you, like breathing, like blinking. The guardian activates itself. A Japanese proverb says, fall 7 times, stand 8 times. But here's what they don't tell you. The standing gets faster each time. First time takes minutes. 100th time takes seconds. 1000th time, you never fully fall. The guardian catches you mid-stumble. This changes everything about focus. You stop needing perfect conditions. Stop waiting for quiet spaces. Stop believing you need hours of uninterrupted time. With a trained guardian, you can focus in chaos. 3 seconds to depth every time. So now you have all 3 elements. The fixed point gives you an anchor. The flow state lets you sustain without burning out. The guardian brings you back instantly when you drift. But here's what the masters discovered. These aren't 3 separate practices. They're 3 parts of one system that create something extraordinary. Fixed point gives you the anchor. Deep flow lets you sustain without burning out. The guardian brings you back when you drift. Together, they create focus that nothing can break. Here's why each part needs the others. The fixed point alone becomes rigid, strong but brittle. Add deep flow and it becomes flexible but vulnerable to interruption. Add the guardian and suddenly you have something unstoppable. The fixed point is your sword. Deep flow is how you wield it. The guardian is your awareness that never drops. Samurai with just a sword dies. One who flows but has no anchor gets lost. One without a guardian gets ambushed. Together invincible. But here's the warning. Once you develop this level of focus, going back to scattered thinking feels like torture. Like a samurai returning to life as a farmer. Your brain adapts to clarity and chaos becomes physically uncomfortable. You've been warned. Please hit the like button and subscribe to Stoic Tide for more insights.